It's a beautiful sunny day down on the barracks. In fact, it's really hot and sunny. Shot this about a week ago, and since then it's just got hotter and sunnier. The world broke its all-time, or at least last 120,000 years, which is the same thing from a human perspective, just broke its all-time heat records, which is not a thing that you should be doing too often. I think it did that on Tuesday this week. And then it did it again on Wednesday. So on Tuesday it broke a 120,000-year-old record, and on Wednesday it broke a one-day-old record. Quite amazing. Anyway, here I am. This part of the barracks has been through many different names. It was called the Pig Field for the longest time, I think. Those buildings at the back. They used to be where the guard dogs were kept. For the border between East and West Germany back in the day, and now they're where pigs are kept, at least the one on the left-hand side with the metal cage around it. The pigs could actually bust through that metal cage really easily if they tried. When they were small, all three of them could fit between the metal cage and the door, just all three of them standing there. Now you can hardly squeeze one of them through the door, they're so fat. So that's their house. The area just to the left of that is called the garden, not the pig garden, that's just called the garden, and that's the pig's garden. They live here in the summer. Sorry, no, they don't. They live here in the winter, and in the summer they're over across the road in the place that is now called the pig field. So this area here, it was originally called the pig field for a long time, and then it needed a new name. So the pig houses are now called the mansion, and this area in front is called Mansion House. It's part of North London, where I used to live. It's also one of those incongruous names. It's not a house, it's a garden, but it's called Mansion House. Anyway, this was sewn up, let me see, about the middle of May, about May the 10th, probably, something like that. And I sewed it, we sewed it once, had some help, sewed it once and then just pretty much left it. And so the weeds have taken over. Now the good thing about the weeds is they're almost all delicious to piggies. Sadly I don't know the names of many of them. The ones with the white and yellow flowers, they really appear to be calendula. Sorry, not calendula, chamomile. In every respect, it's chamomile. The roots, the leaves, the flowers. It just doesn't smell like chamomile. Also, the pigs don't very much like eating it. I throw it over to them and they play around with it a bit, but they don't really find it delicious. The big tall weeds, they do like those. They're juicy and delicious and tasty. But the ones they like best are young thistles. In fact, the pig's favourite weeds are thistles when they're especially young and spiky, and nettles when they're especially old and not spiky. What's the word? Burny. What do you call thistles? The pig's favourite weeds are thistles when they're really young, and nettles when they're relatively old. Apparently they like the spikes and the stings in their mouths. I don't know. Maybe they just don't notice it. Maybe they've got the spikes and stings because they just taste so good to all animals that they just want to eat them all. And nettle tea is, of course, absolutely brilliant. Today, in fact, I'm going to be starting on the nettle liquid fertilizer project since I finished talking over this video for you here. So anyway, we planted it all up around about the middle of May, just before the middle of May. It is now the start of July, and all the weeds have properly taken over. So I'm pulling them all out by hand as much as I can stand before it gets too hot, to try and find what's left in here, what's sprouted, what's survived, what's come up. And everything that's in here is basically going to be pig food. Not particularly bothered about completely clearing everything today. This ground is so dry and so baked that I'm pretty happy to leave quite a lot of the weeds in there. They do give shade to the ground, it cools it down a bit. They do give cover, and they do grow up and become pig food, which is what this is all about. The mansion house is all about pig food, so it's good to get that food for them. But of course, the weeds do compete with the plants you actually want in there. They do compete for water and nutrients, and especially water. So I'm going to pull out as much as I can, as much as makes sense by hand, just to free up everything so that it gets to see the sun and gets exclusive rights should it ever rain again, and gets exclusive rights in on the water. But other than that, I'm going to pretty much hoe it in and leave it lying on top of the ground, or where the weeds are quite a long way from the actual food stuff, we might just leave them to grow for a little bit longer. Anyway, as I said, today it's really hot. The wind as well, as you can see, it's not like super strong. We never get super strong wind here. We're properly sheltered by forest on all four sides. But the wind does get up a bit. You can see it moving the plants all quite a lot. And what it's doing really, it's just killing the pirate. It is so hot and so dry. I actually wanted to weed all of this. Or at least weed it as much as I needed, but you'll see the video the video ends early. I don't finish it. It was just too much. I had to go inside and have a lie down. I was thinking of faking it for the gram, for the tubes, coming back the next day and finishing it off on camera. Eventually decided that was a silly idea. We're going for radical authenticity after all, so let's not fake too much for the joys of YouTube. Yeah, I'm going to leave the images just to play for a little bit, I think. But what we've got in here is we have beetroot, sweet corn, sunflowers, and a couple of pumpkin plants as well. Now the sunflowers were very old seeds, and probably weren't stored exactly the best way. There we go, there's that calendula chamomile again. If anyone can correctly identify it, tell me what it is if it's not chamomile. That would be great. I'm really not very good with weeds, food you can't eat. You can eat a lot of weeds. I'm not very good with wild crafting either, to be honest. I will go out and get some wild garlic, and I'll have some nettle soup a couple of times in the spring, but I'm not really very much of a wild crafter, so I'd love to know more about that. Anyway, I got the first bag full. Taking that over to the piggies. They'll be delighted with that, I'm sure. And we'll watch the garden grow. What do you know? The first bag's not going to the piggies, it's going to the compost. There's an awful lot of people telling you how to make compost on the internet, and they're all trying to sell you something. Even if they're not directly trying to sell you something, they're trying to build up their brand in order to sell things to someone. Compost is easy. You pile stuff up and you leave it. The obsession with making compost is about making it hot, getting it all to decay through chemical means. Well, I'm not particularly interested in biological means. No, chemical means. I'm not particularly interested in that. I want my compost to digest in the guts of the animals that eat it all up. So yeah, sure, my compost gets a bit warm. But at the end of the day, when I spread my compost on the ground, it's not quite finished. It's certainly not the sort of stuff that the compost professionals will run through their fingers and show you how perfect and friable and loamy it is, because I don't want that. I don't want sterile compost. I want it on the ground with the bacteria and the bugs in it. So when my compost's mostly finished, I take it all out, I pile it all up on the ground, and let it do its last little bit where it's actually going to be used. This is all about improving the quality of the soil. You do not improve the quality of the soil by sterilising it. Right, you make it look better, it's better for the gram. Well, the state of this soil is almost sandy in colour, which is weird because it's just pure clay. But it's getting better, it's getting richer and better for supporting plant life. Just compost, no good. You want a full living ecosystem. At least that's the way I see it. you might be able to tell in this bit that's coming up. I'm going to take a load of weeds and stuff over to the piggies. There's still quite a lot on the ground there. You can see this is about the third bag that I've taken over to them. Tony, of course, is standing there waiting to receive his gifts, as is his right, as king and lord of everything he can see. The other two, the girls, one of them, Marilyn, is over by the fence, and Brunhilde is in her pig house, their pig house. They know I'm there. They can see me, they can smell me, they even look up at me and give me a sort of friendly, welcoming grunt. But they're not that bothered about the food. This is unusual for a pig. Pigs are usually bothered by food. This tells you two things. One, it is very hot, and they'd just rather lie around in the sun, which is pretty much their favourite thing to do, other than eating and sleeping. And two, they've already had about 3 bags of this stuff. I've been chucking them stuff off camera. There was a lot of weeds in here, and you can see, you can now really start to see what we've actually sown in here. It's mostly sweet corn. If you look carefully, right in the middle of the picture, there's a couple of sunflowers, but the sunflowers, like I say, really didn't do very well. The seeds were a couple of years old. I don't think I stored them perfectly, but the sweet corn's all doing fine, actually. I got this agricultural sweet corn donated to me. Most of the sweet corn I grow is from my own seed. Saving seed is very important. Saving sweet corn seed might be the easiest seed to save, and also the returns on it. For each seed that germinates and turns into a plant, you get 2 cobs of sweet corn off it. What's that? Usually 25 to 30 rows of sweet corn, about 12 columns, something like that. So that's about 300 seeds maybe per plant, per cob. So one sweet corn plant, one sweet corn seed will give you maybe 500, 600 seeds for next year, and you just pull them off the cob and put them dry them out and put them in a bucket somewhere. So seed saving, sweet corn's the easiest of everything. But this year I got a bunch of agricultural sweet corn. It's coated with something orange. I've got no idea what it is. I'm told it's organic, so it's still organic sweet corn. But it germinates really quickly, and it seems to be growing quite well without any rain at all. This has all been watered at least once, maybe twice, but it's not really rained on it at all, and it's all doing absolutely brilliantly. So there's something funny going on there. It is supposed to be a particularly drought-resistant variety of sweet corn, and I've got no idea what the coating is. And the seeds are a lot fatter than the ones I saved myself. So either I don't know as much about sweet corn saving as I thought I did. It's probably more complicated than I'm making out. Or on a mega agricultural scale, seed is so expensive because it's so reliable. The farmer knows for every seed he puts in the ground at the right depth and the right distance, it's almost certainly going to sprout. If it sprouts, it grows, as long as it rains. Sprouting is the only difficult bit about gardening, and the only bit we know almost nothing about. We pretend to control the elements and control the water and control when we put them in, and we think that we're the chiefs of the garden, but we still couldn't make a seed germinate on our own without it just doing its thing. So there we go. Sweet corn's doing really well. There's a ton of beetroot in here as well. Pigs adore beetroot. Not only do they really love it, it's really funny watching them eating it, because it just looks like they're crunching up blood and bones and having a good old carnivorous time. A warning to anyone who tries to invade the barracks, I'm sure. And the sunflowers. Hoeing is great. It's like weeding but quicker. And as I say, you just leave the dead stuff lying on the ground and it acts as a mulch. As long as the stuff that you're hoeing hasn't seeded yet, then just hoe it and leave it on the ground. And if it's seeded, then you're just basically sowing seeds of weeds, which is not going to give you 7 years of pleasure, that's for sure. And you can see the wind's getting up a bit again. What you can't see is it's getting hotter. I'm standing around in the shade for a bit, but that's not going to last forever. And down the bottom where I am now, the weeds are a lot thicker and a lot denser than they were at the top. Oh, and I remember what it was. I remember what the problem was down the bottom. Oh, at the top here, there were these long, leggy, delicious weeds and the chamomile and some stuff. Down the bottom, it's all nettles. And, I don't mind nettles and I don't really get stung very much. I mean, I do, but I don't, same as anyone else, but it doesn't really hurt. I'm kind of not quite immune to them. But I am not hand weeding an entire vegetable plot of nettles by hand. No way. Not even with gloves on. I'm wearing shorts. I've got my arms out. That ain't happening. That is no fun. One of the most important things to know about compost is if you buy all the books and go on the expensive courses and learn how other people tell you how to do things properly and how everything else is wrong, you're not making more compost. The amount of compost you make is to do with the amount of stuff you pile up. And if you pile it up, and I mean it's good to mix it up a bit, do it in layers, but it's a fairly quick learning experience. If you make a compost heap out of nothing but wet grass, you're going to end up with silage. I mean, it's fairly obvious, but I had to go through it once. I only learnt it was obvious by doing it wrong. You don't want to put pure silage on your ground, particularly. It's way too noxious. Also, it's just mostly liquid. It just runs away. It's not really any good for anyone very much. If you just make it out of leaves, well, it takes 2 years to decompose. If you put wood in it, it pretty much never decomposes. I mean, eventually it will, but not by the time everything around it is decomposed. All you need to know about compost is that everything that you put on there needs to be compostable. So if there's a bit of wood or wood shavings in there as well, then leave it. Don't put that on the compost heap. Put it somewhere else, and a year later put it on the compost heap when it's had a chance to break down some of that really nasty cellulose stuff. Oh, it's not nasty, it's great. Pigs love it, but it's not very good for growing stuff in. My big problem with the people who do the no-dig thing is they only grow in sterile compost. I mean, they have literally separated themselves from the ground. They get all arithmetic and mathematical and calendar exact on things, and they can tell you how much more of everything they're growing. But if they're not improving the soil, and one day their sources of compost runs out, because they always import more compost than they can make on their own land, and they boast about it. They tell you how to get coffee grounds from Starbucks and cardboard from McDonald's and as much grass and leaves as you can steal from elsewhere. You have to be bringing stuff in. this isn't self-sufficient just because you're getting it for free. Yeah, sure, I use a lot of free stuff, but the aim is always with an eye on getting more and more self-sufficient. If you're bringing stuff in from outside to make the amount of compost you need to do no dig, you're not self-sufficient. You're not improving the quality of the earth. You're just improving your profits. And I'm not really big into profits. I don't like the concept of market gardening particularly. I mean, it's better than mega agriculture, but I don't really like market gardening's fine. I don't like the obsession with knowing exactly when you did everything and exactly how much of everything you've got, and pretending that you're being scientific about a natural process that we really don't have any control over. We plant the seeds in the ground. After that, it's pretty much up to nature to decide what it's going to do with them or not.